Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business Spotlight series. My name is Claudia Thompson and I'm here today with Matt Hammond, the founder of Talk, Think, Do. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
And why don't you start and tell us who you are and what it is you do?
So I'm Matt Hammond, as you said. So I run Talk, Think, Do. Talk, Think, Do is a software company. I've got a 30-year plus now background in software as a developer and architect, and basically saw a lot of disappointment with clients we're working with in other software suppliers and wanted to start one that did things the way I thought they should be done.
Fantastic. And you're obviously going quite strong. And what do you think is the secret of your growth, or what would you attribute your growth to?
We do goal setting. So we've had fairly consistent. Well, it looks very consistent. So it looks very linear growth. Not far off sort of doubling turnover at least and headcount over the last 4 or 5 years or so, which looks like a smooth line. Doesn't feel like a smooth line while you're doing it. But we use EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, as a sort of framework for running the business. And as part of that, we set 1 year, 3-year, and 10-year goals. And we do tend to set, slightly stretched but pretty achievable goals. And by doing that, we do run the business targeting those goals, and we do hit. We sort of design the targets to be achievable, so we do tend to hit them, and that really we put in very early on. And that's sort of been the secret, I think, to us making the right decisions to grow.
Wow, goal setting. I'm definitely a big fan, big believer, because if you don't know where you're going, then chances are you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
And speaking of goals, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And what other words of advice do you have for other businesses that are looking to grow?
So in 5 years' time, I can't really answer because again we set the 3-year and 10-year goals, but so we have a fairly clear idea where we want to be in 3 years' time. And one of the things we want to do is run 24-hour support and run round-the-clock development. So we are looking at opening in 4. We were already opening an office last year in the US, but we're looking at operating small offices in 4 locations worldwide to do follow the sun development and support. And we've actually interestingly scaled back slightly the sort of headcount we expect to have over the period to deliver the service based on some of the advancements in AI that are going on. But yeah, in terms of revenue, headcount, locations, and where we want to be, we've got a pretty clear idea where we want to be in 3 years. And in 2 years' time, when we set a 3-year goal, we'll know where we're going to be in 5 years.
Yeah, fantastic. And what advice do you have for business owners that are looking to grow their business?
So I do think it's very hard when you start out. So when I started out when it was just me, and usually you're very constrained in terms of budget and money for growth. To date we've grown organically and we've been self-funded in terms of how we've grown. There's obviously different paths through growth depending on what your plans are as to whether you need investment, whether you need to take money on. But also I do think early on it's quite, because you're so constrained on budget, you're very careful not to spend money, and sometimes you do need to spend money to grow. There are some decisions which if you're clear on what sort of growth you want, there's some decisions you take quite early on which are quite hard because you're very limited in what you can spend your money on, but not spending the money is not the right answer. I think it's really prioritizing where money is spent and being prepared to spend it even though you've got very little of it at that point.
Yeah, that's great advice there. And you mentioned earlier that you have had quite substantial growth that looked linear on paper. You have offices in different countries, and you can't do these things on your own. And you mentioned your team, but what have been your biggest learnings as an employer since you began in business?
To be honest, everything was quite easy when you're on your own because you only really worry about being responsible for you and your family's income. Once we took on our first employee, you do feel quite a sense of responsibility in terms of another household being responsible for you in terms of you employing them and providing livelihood for them. And it didn't take that lightly, but once I had employee number 1, the work expanded in a way that it just, you know, is a natural expansion to take people on. But I think the main thing I've always tried to do is to create a company that I want to work in and I enjoy spending time in. And at the end of the day, you know, for us, we work in software. Software is an in-demand service. So really, it's about employing people that you like working with, having a really trusted sort of friendly team who trust each other and lean on each other and enjoy working together, but also then trying to find clients that with a similar sort of set of values, so that we work with clients, we enjoy working with them, they enjoy working with us, and really it's about creating somewhere where people want to come. Obviously not necessarily come these days, so yeah, we work hybrid, but people enjoy going to work because of the people they're spending time with.
And are there any certain qualities that you look for when you're in the recruitment process?
Yeah, well, we do, again, as part of the EOS framework, a key part of it is setting your company values, and they do sort of flow through the performance sort of review cycle, but also they feature very highly in hiring. For us, you know, we're in an industry where it's hard to recruit people. It's very hard to get people with the right technical skills. But even when we find people with the right technical skills, we put much more value on the values that we see, and people align to our values than we do on the technical skills, because it's, you know, the values sort of come from the core of somebody's core beliefs and who they are. So it's very hard to change those if they're not quite aligned. It's easier to teach people the technical skills. So yeah, we really, and you know, coming from working years ago in sort of corporate life, I never really put much value myself as an employee in the company values. I always thought they were quite cheesy, and the way they were applied was not. You know, a lot of them, to be fair, most companies, there's a lot of commonality between their values. But I think if you really pick the right ones and they really represent how you work, and you really embed them in terms of how you work and how you talk to each other, they are really powerful. It's just it's not always obvious as an employee that that's the case, but I think when you're an employer and you're doing it, it's more obvious.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? How it's suddenly all different when you're on the other side of the game. If you had to start again from square one in business, what would you do differently?
Wow. That's an interesting one. So you've obviously made mistakes over the years, but haven't really ever sort of reflected to look back and think maybe we should have done something differently, because there's not really a lot of value in doing that. There's value in learning from your mistakes, but yeah, I think in terms of do the business, if I was doing the same sort of business again, I think I can't really think of many things we do that differently. I do think, you know, it's slightly unusual for a company in that I'm very technical, not salesy as a founder. So in lots of businesses that we compete with have got more of a sales focused sort of exec team. And I think for us, you know, that is a slight gap, and probably maybe addressing that slightly earlier on would be something I do next time, and sort of focus more on sales, and not less on delivery, but sales as well as the delivery of what we're doing. Whereas we've been very much delivery focused and just grown fairly organically as you know, as the work's increased.
Thank you for sharing. And it sounds like you are quite on top of all your numbers and you've got your goals set as well. What advice would you give to a newer business owner that is maybe a bit apprehensive when it comes to financial management, or they think they don't know what to focus on?
Well, I say I'm on top of it, but so our managing director Louise is really on top of it, and so I trust her to do it. So, you know, number one is it's not particularly my strength. So you know, identifying that and having somebody when you get to the point of being able to have somebody to do it is important. But very early on, you know, as everyone does now, we use Xero, or everyone's got an accounting package that integrates with their bank account that makes things quite a bit easier. One of the things we did very early on that has really helped us was to buy some cash flow forecasting software that integrated with that. So we use something called FloatApp that integrates with Xero, and that gives us a really good picture of the cash flow. And that, you know, really from the very early days, that's how we've managed the business from a financial point of view. And at the end of the day, if at year end, whether you've made a profit or a loss is, for me, is far less important than having the cash to keep going in terms of the bank. So I think if you are slightly limited in your understanding that area, really focusing on cash flow and having a good visibility of that, and spending, it doesn't have to be all the time, but monthly spending time doing that is important.
That's very valuable advice. How do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business?
You just have to find the hours to do both. So I've had plenty of family holidays where I've been getting up at 4 a.m. and doing 4 hours work before anyone else has woken up. Getting up early has always been a bit of a secret weapon to me anyway. So it's about grabbing the time when you can to spend what is always an inordinate amount of time needed to run a business, and trying to fit that and time shift your hours around to fit that around family life. But there's no sort of no secret sauce for it, but certainly there's a bit of a backlash against people saying you need to get up early to run a business, but it does really help.
Yeah, we're all still looking for the secret sauce.
Yeah.
And what do you think are some common misconceptions that people have about running a business, and how do you address them?
I think a lot of, so certainly sort of in your personal life, a lot of people see you and don't really understand the amount of work that's involved in doing it and the amount of time that you take and goes into it. To be honest, there's not many misconceptions these days, I'd say, because there's so much support in terms of things like this and books and people talking about running businesses. I mean, one of the things that is again, everyone talks about, but I think is really a truism, is that how lonely it can be running a business. So until you've got a team and an exec team that you really can depend on and talk through every issue, when you're smaller and it is just you doing it, it's quite hard sometimes to get the advice you need or to be able to talk things through. So that is probably our biggest bit of advice is to try and find somebody that you can talk to, whether it's a mentor or a coach or somebody within the business. But yeah, without that, it can be quite lonely.
Very true. Fantastic. That wraps up our interview. How can people find out more about you? How can they get in touch?
So I'm on LinkedIn, so you can always message me directly, or to our website, talkthinkdo.com. And again, there's consultation forms. Usually, if someone feels one of those in it, I'll be the first person to speak to them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today, Matt, and for sharing your story.
No problem. Thanks very much.